While Will was on a plane, a strong air current suddenly hit, causing the aircraft to shake violently. Fortunately, the shaking stopped quickly, but Will did not relax because he experienced a severe choking sensation. No matter how hard he tried, he could not breathe normally. At this point, the flight attendant, Daisy, quickly came to check on the situation and then broadcasted a request for any doctors on board who could come to help. However, Will's condition was getting worse. To make his breathing smoother, Will put his hand down his throat and suddenly spit out a mouthful of blood. The passengers were all frightened by this scene. At this moment, Dr. Pete, who heard the broadcast, rushed over, but Will's symptoms were very unusual, and Pete could not quickly identify the cause. Suddenly, Will let out a painful scream, and his body convulsed violently before he stopped breathing. Seeing this, Pete hurriedly asked everyone to carry him to the kitchen and use a defibrillator for cardiopulmonary resuscitation, but they still could not revive him. The captain immediately reported the incident to the ground control tower and asked the airport to verify the identity of the deceased. The cause of death was not yet clear, and fearing other unpredictable problems, the captain asked for Will's economy class cabin to be cleared, leaving the body alone. At this point, Pete sat back in his seat and wanted to drink some water, but he was surprised to find that his fingers were starting to darken. As a doctor, Pete realized that this was a sign of severe hypoxia in the cardiopulmonary system. At this time, Daisy also noticed something was wrong. The water bottle was compressed and deformed due to the change in air pressure, and the water glass kept shaking. Realizing what was happening, Daisy hurried to her seat and sat down, loudly reminding everyone to fasten their seatbelts. The next second, the plane began to shake uncontrollably. Passengers who had not had time to fasten their seatbelts flew up to the ceiling, and luggage kept falling in the shaking. The sudden change made everyone panic, and they could only desperately grasp the armrests and pray constantly. At this time, the captain also realized the crisis and quickly put on his oxygen mask. Soon, the air pressure in the cabin dropped rapidly. When it reached a critical point, the oxygen masks suddenly popped out automatically. They quickly put the oxygen masks on their heads and breathed in oxygen. At this point, Pete found that some people had fainted because they had not worn masks. The kind-hearted Pete rushed over to help several people put their masks back on, but when he turned around, he found that his wife had also fainted at some point. Pete also fell to the ground due to lack of oxygen. At this moment, he saw the emergency oxygen supply sign next to him and quickly opened it before fainting, taking out the spare oxygen cylinder inside. He then quickly ran back to his seat and put it on his wife, which allowed his unconscious wife to wake up. At this time, the plane slowly stopped shaking, and the cabin pressure value returned to normal. The captain made an announcement at the first opportunity. They had encountered a storm while crossing the atmospheric layer, and a component of the aircraft had a damaged seal, which caused the problem with the cabin pressure. However, they had already made emergency repairs. Next, they would lower the aircraft's altitude to a high oxygen content zone, and there was no need to worry anymore. The passengers who had successfully survived the disaster finally relaxed. However, many strange things happened on the plane afterward because Will's body had disappeared.